The kitchen clock ticked past 9 p.m., its rhythm swallowed by the oppressive silence of the Langley mansion. Rosa Bennett, 35, stood at the sink, her hand steady on a damp dish towel, though her pulse thrummed with anticipation. Across the room, Richard Langley, 60, loomed in the doorway, his tailored suit as sharp as his glare. His real estate empire had built half of Seattle, but tonight his eyes were fixed on Rosa, the maid he'd employed for 8 months. A diamond necklace, $20,000, his wife claimed, had vanished from their bedroom. Rosa had cleaned there that morning. To Richard, the math was simple. "Empty your pockets, Rosa," he said, his voice a cold blade slicing through the quiet. Rosa turned slowly, her dark eyes meeting his without a flicker of fear. She folded the towel with deliberate care, her movements calm, almost rehearsed. "Is there a problem, Mr. Langley?" Her tone was polite, professional, but laced with a subtle defiance that made Richard's jaw tighten. "My wife's necklace is gone," he said, crossing his arms. "You were the only one in there today." Rosa's lips curved into a faint smile, not of guilt, but of something sharper, something Richard couldn't place. He'd seen maids crumble under accusations like this. Black maids, especially, who knew better than to challenge him. He'd fired dozens over the years, each one leaving quietly, their reputations in tatters. But Rosa didn't flinch. She reached in her apron pocket, pulling out a pack of gum, a tissue, keys. "No necklace. Satisfied?" she asked, her hands empty, her gaze unyielding. Before Richard could respond, the doorbell rang, a sharp chime that echoed through the mansion's marble halls. It rang again, insistent, urgent. Richard's eyes darted to the hallway, then back to Rosa, who didn't move. Her smile widened, a glint of triumph in it. "I should get that," she said, stepping past him with a confidence that sent a chill down his spine. As she walked toward the door, her steps measured, Richard felt the ground shift beneath him. For 8 months, he'd treated Rosa as invisible, just another servant in his pristine world. Now, her calm certainty unnerved him. Who was at the door? And why did Rosa seem to know exactly what was coming? Rosa's shoes clicked against the polished floor as she crossed the grand foyer, her heart steady despite the weight of the moment. 8 months ago, she'd walked into this mansion not as a maid, but as a hunter, a Columbia-educated investigative journalist. Rosa had lost her job at the Seattle Herald after exposing discriminatory hiring practices among the city's elite. The backlash had been swift, lawsuits, blacklisting, her savings drained. With a teenage daughter, Nia, to support, she'd taken this job, swallowing her pride to scrub floors for a man like Richard Langley. But she'd seen his type before. Powerful, prejudiced, untouchable. Or so he thought. She'd noticed the patterns early. Richard's casual slurs about lazy people, his contempt for the Hispanic gardeners, the black delivery drivers, the maids he fired without proof. She'd overheard his phone calls, his boasts about dodging taxes, bribing inspectors, using missing items as excuses to sack black employees. Each insult, each smirk had fueled her resolve. This wasn't just a job, it was a mission. Rosa opened the door to 3 women and a man in a suit, their faces a mix of determination and quiet rage. Evelyn Carter, 62, her gray hair pulled back, had worked for Richard 2 years ago until he accused her of stealing cash. Clara Hayes, 44, had lasted 6 months before a missing watch ended her tenure. Lorraine Brooks, 53, had cleaned this house for 4 years until a ring, later found in Richard's wife's purse, cost her job. The man, Daniel Pierce, was an attorney specializing in employment rights and racial discrimination. Rosa had spent months tracking him down, building a case, waiting for this night. "Mr. Langley," Rosa called, her voice carrying an authority that made the chandelier above seem to flicker. "Join us in the living room. We have much to discuss." Richard followed, his steps heavy, his mind racing. The living room, with its Italian leather sofas and priceless art, felt alien now. The 3 women sat comfortably, as if they owned the space. Daniel Pierce arranged documents on the coffee table, his movements precise. Richard's voice boomed, masking his unease. What the hell is this? Who are these people? Rosa stood by the window, the city skyline glittering beyond. Evelyn Carter, Clara Hayes, Lorraine Brooks, all women you fire for thefts they didn't commit. And this is Daniel Pierce, our attorney. Richard's face flushed. He recognized the faces, vaguely. Maids he'd dismissed, their names barely registered. This is absurd, he snapped. I have every right to protect my property. Things go missing, and you people. Rosa cut in, her voice sharp now, a blade honed over months of silent fury. Go on, Mr. Langley. Say it. Evelyn leaned forward, her eyes like steel. You called me a thief, said I was typical. I lost my job, my savings, nearly my home. You found the money later, didn't you? In your desk. Never apologized. Clara's voice trembled with restrained anger. You accused me of stealing a watch. I couldn't get another job for a year. My son went hungry. Lorraine's gaze was steady, unyielding. That ring you said I took? Your wife left it in her car. You knew, but you let me go anyway. Richard's hands clenched. This is a setup. You can't prove anything. Daniel Pierce opened a folder, spreading documents across the table. For 8 months, Rosa has documented your pattern of false accusations against black employees. Recordings, photos, witness statements. 12 maids fired in 5 years. All black, all accused without evidence. Richard's eyes widened. Recordings? He remembered Rosa vacuuming, dusting, always nearby. He'd never thought twice about her presence. You spied on me? He growled. Rosa pulled a small recorder from behind a bookshelf, then another and another. You love talking in the library, Mr. Langley. Thursday mornings, while I cleaned the hallway. You bragged about bribing city officials, rigging contracts, using theft to fire troublemakers. Richard's throat tightened. He recalled those calls, laughing with his lawyer about getting rid of the help, joking about suspicious types like Rosa. He'd thought her invisible, insignificant. Now, her eyes burned with a fire that made him feel small. The doorbell rang again. Richard's head snapped toward the sound, his heart pounding. Rosa's smile returned, colder now. More guests, she said, moving toward the foyer. Richard's palms sweated as he followed Rosa, his mind scrambling for control. Who else could she have brought? He'd built an empire on connections. Lawyers, judges, council members. No maid could outmaneuver him. Yet, as Rosa opened the door, 2 detectives stood there, badges gleaming under the porch light. Mr. Langley, the older detective said, holding up a warrant. We need to discuss irregularities in your municipal contracts. Richard's legs buckled, but he caught himself on the banister. This is a mistake, he stammered. I'm Richard Langley. I own this city. Rosa turned, her expression unreadable. Not anymore. As the detectives entered, Daniel Pierce handed them a flash drive. Recordings, bank records, photos, evidence of bribery, tax fraud, and discriminatory firings. Rosa's been thorough. Richard's vision blurred. He remembered Rosa's first day, her quiet demeanor, her yes, sir responses. He'd seen her as a stereotype, a single mother scraping by, easy to intimidate. But Rosa wasn't just a maid. She'd been a journalist, her career derailed by men like him. This job was her cover, her way into his world. And he'd let her in, blind to the threat she posed. Flashback to 6 months ago, Rosa, in a dimly lit cafe, meeting Evelyn Carter. I know you're innocent, Rosa had said, her voice urgent. I'm building a case against Langley. Will you help? Evelyn had hesitated, fear etched into her weathered face. But Rosa's conviction won her over. Clara and Lorraine joined later, each sharing stories of humiliation, their lives upended by Richard's accusations. Together, they planned this reckoning. Back in the present, Richard's phone buzzed incessantly. Notifications flooded in, business partners pulling out, reporters demanding statements, his secretary warning of plummeting stocks. He lunged for Rosa's recorder, desperate to stop the evidence. But Daniel stepped in front, his voice calm but firm. That's witness intimidation, Mr. Langley. It won't help. Rosa held up her phone, a live stream playing. Thousands watched, the number climbing. 30,000, 35,000. Comment scrolled, "Justice. He's done." Richard's voice, recorded weeks ago, played from the device. "This Rosa's perfect. Looks like she'd steal in a heartbeat. When we need a scapegoat, she'll do." The room spun. Richard sank into an armchair, his empire crumbling in real time. "The necklace," he whispered, grasping at straws. "It's still missing." Rosa walked to the fireplace, reaching behind a framed photo, Richard and his wife's wedding portrait. She held up the diamond necklace, its stones glinting. "Your wife left it here last night. I found it this morning, but waited. I wanted to see how far your prejudice would take you." Richard's breath caught. He'd built his accusation on assumption, not evidence. Rosa had planned for this moment, turning his own bias against him. The detectives began searching the mansion, their footsteps echoing as they rifled through Richard's office. Rosa stood with Evelyn, Clara, and Lorraine, their faces a mix of relief and resolve. But new tension crept into Rosa's chest. She'd orchestrated this perfectly, yet a memory surfaced. Her daughter, Nia, 16, crying after a teacher called her trouble for questioning a grade. Rosa had taken this job to pay Nia's tuition, but also to show her daughter that justice was possible, even against men like Richard. Was she gone too far? What if Nia saw the live stream, saw her mother's ruthlessness? The thought vanished as Richard's voice cut through. "You think you've won?" he spat, standing now, his face red with defiance. "I have lawyers, contacts. I'll sue you for defamation, invasion of privacy, everything." Rosa met his gaze, unflinching. "With what?" "Your lawyers are backing out." I made sure of that. She'd spent months mapping Richard's network, contacting his associates under aliases, planting doubts about his ethics. One by one, they distanced themselves, citing conflicts of interest. Richard dialed his lawyer, Harvey, his hands shaking. "Harvey, I need you here now. These people are—" He stopped, his face paling. "What do you mean? You can't represent me." He tried 2 more numbers, each call ending the same way. Excuses, refusals. His empire, built on favors and fear, was abandoning him. Rosa stepped closer, her voice low. "For 8 months, I studied you, Mr. Langley. Every call, every deal, every lie. You thought I was nothing because of my skin, my job. That was your mistake." Daniel spread more documents. Photos of Richard handing envelopes to inspectors, falsified safety reports, bank records of shady payments. "You overcharged on 12 public projects," he said. "The city's launching a criminal investigation." Richard's eyes darted to Rosa, a flicker of something new in them. Fear, but also a desperate cunning. "You're not untouchable," he said, his voice low. "I know about your daughter, Nia. Private school, right? Expensive. What happens when they find out her mother's a fraud?" Rosa's heart stopped. Nia was her world, the reason she'd endured Richard's insults, the late nights planning this takedown. Had she miscalculated? Richard's smirk returned, sensing her hesitation. "One call," he said, "and her scholarship's gone." The room tensed. Evelyn gripped Clara's hand. Lorraine's eyes widened. Rosa's mind raced. She'd anticipated Richard's tactics, but Nia was her blind spot. Then her phone buzzed. A text from Nia. "I'm watching the stream, Mom. You're my hero. Finish this." Rosa's resolve hardened. She leaned in, her voice a whisper. "Threaten my daughter again, and I'll make sure every secret you've got left sees daylight." The detectives returned, carrying files from Richard's office. "We've got enough here for multiple charges," the younger one said. "Tax fraud, bribery, discrimination." Richard's phone lit up with more notifications. His company's stock crashing, contracts canceled, reporters circling. Across town, Rosa's live stream hit 50,000 viewers, journalists and activists amplifying her evidence. The Seattle Herald called, offering an interview. CNN followed. The story was breaking wide open, but a twist lingered. As the detectives cuffed Richard, his wife, Elaine, appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Rosa," she said, her voice trembling. I didn't know he did this. Not to you, not to them." Elaine had found the necklace that morning, had told Richard it was misplaced, but he'd insisted on blaming Rosa. Now, her guilt was palpable. Rosa studied her. Elaine had never been cruel, just complicit, turning a blind eye to Richard's ways. "You can still do something," Rosa said. "Testify." Elaine nodded, tears falling. It was a small victory, but it shifted the tide further. Richard's last ally was slipping away. 6 months later, Rosa sat in her new office at the Seattle Herald, the city sprawling below. Her exposé on Richard Langley had won a Pulitzer nomination, her career reborn. Her book, Unseen Strength, topped bestseller lists, chronicling her fight and those of Evelyn, Clara, and Lorraine. Evelyn had started a cleaning cooperative, hiring women wronged by employers like Richard. Clara enrolled in nursing school, her son cheering her on. Lorraine opened a community center, mentoring young women of color. Richard's empire had collapsed. Of his 87 properties, only a handful remained. Criminal charges, bribery, fraud, discrimination loomed his reputation in ruins. In a rented apartment, he watched news of Rosa's accolades, his face haggard. He'd underestimated her, blinded by his own prejudice. That blindness had been his downfall. Rosa paused at her desk, reading a letter from a young journalist inspired by her story. "You showed me I don't have to stay invisible," it read. She smiled, thinking of Nia, now thriving at school, proud of her mother's fight. The Langley mansion, now for sale, stood empty, a relic of a man who'd thought power was eternal. Rosa had learned that true strength wasn't in destroying her enemies, but in building a legacy from their ruins. Richard had seen her as nothing, a maid, a stereotype. In the end, that was his fatal mistake. She'd been the most dangerous person in his world, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the moment to strike. As Rosa walked out of her office, the Seattle skyline aglow, she felt the weight of her journey. She'd faced a titan and won, not with vengeance, but with truth. To you, watching this story unfold, know this. Your strength lies in your ability to see beyond appearances, to challenge injustice, and to rise above those who seek to diminish you. Prejudice blinds, empathy empowers. Let Rosa's story remind you to stand tall, to fight smart, and to turn invisibility into invincibility. Your voice, your courage, can change everything.